And this is the Inside the Lines podcast. I'm yelling into my computer from snowy South Bend, Indiana, and my counterpart over there in Pennsylvania, Dan Black. How's it going, Dan?
I'm good. How are you? How was your Christmas?
It was good. It was good. Lots of family. I actually had the flu, but I overcame it. It was a rough couple days, but still had a great holiday with the family. I'm all better now and ready to talk about the world of sports. How was your 8 crazy nights?
What?
How was your 8 crazy nights?
Oh, I mean, it was fine. I was on vacation. I was in Punta Cana, so got tan and stuff. For I think that was the first the last few days of the holiday, and then just hung out for a week, and then got back, and now it's cold. I went to Eagles.
So how was the Dominican Republic? How different is it from Pennsylvania? Probably a lot warmer.
I mean, yeah, well, see, when I got home last Saturday, it was like 57 degrees, so that was weird. But other than that, yeah, it's been cold. I went to the Eagles game the other night. It was like 25 degrees, so that was much different than Punta Cana at night. You can say that.
I saw it. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
What was the best part about Punta Cana for those that haven't been? Because it seems like somewhere I'd want to go. I was looking at your Snap story. Seemed like a good time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good time. Being in a resort, you're limited sometimes, but I mean, we got to go out. We got to go dune buggying, so that was probably my favorite part because I'd never gone dune buggying before. But the beaches are nice and all that good stuff. I don't know, if you got a week to kill and you're trying to get out of the cold, it's not a terrible place. There's worse places to go to.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I did also see you at the Eagles game on Christmas Day. They beat the Raiders just barely, but Nick Foles has been getting the job done. Defeated the Giants, defeated the Raiders, but I saw you were already calling for Nate Sudfeld. So what's your confidence level? You did say you thought they would win the last 3 games. They've won 2, and they've got a Cowboys team this week that's already been eliminated from the playoffs. What's your confidence level going forward with the Eagles at least making the Super Bowl?
It's tough watching that game. You'd like to say that it was just that their struggles came mostly from the fact that it was cold and they aren't used to playing in the cold yet, and Nick Foles is still getting it. It's tough to get thrown into the starting position late into the year, especially when it's not optimal weather, to say the least. So you want to say that now that they've got more experience over the past, playing in New York, I believe it was cold then. I assume that was only a couple of weeks ago, so I assume it was still cold in New York, and obviously cold last Monday. So hopefully you say, all right, they're used to the cold, they're used to Nick Foles. Hopefully they're getting on, on the same page. But the defense looked great. It was one of those situations where great teams, when one side isn't doing well, the other side picks it up, and luckily the defense did pick it up to get that win. It caused 5 turnovers, so that was huge. But the run game wasn't good. That didn't give me confidence. The pass game was atrocious, so that didn't give me confidence. But and it doesn't, especially for the fact that going into this week, the starters aren't playing at most a half, if not less than that. So you don't really get to see if the starting unit can bounce back this week, except for maybe a quarter, a half, if that's probably the most you'd assume, especially because they have home field throughout locked up. They have the first time out. They have everything. It's all good. But my confidence level, I mean, I'm still fairly confident. I think Nick Foles can get the job done.
All right.
I think that defense, if they play, they have injuries right now, and not playing the starters they'll basically have 2 weeks or so to get ready. I guess 3 actually. There'll be 3 Sundays from this upcoming Sunday that they play. I believe so. So so they'll have time to rest and get healthy, and hopefully that gives them a chance to get in unison and get back into it and whatever, and they'll get used to playing together again. So I think they still have a very good chance. Now it depends on who comes into the divisional round against them. None of the teams in the NFC are gimmies this year.
No, the NFC is wide open.
1-6, it's all up for grabs. There's no. It's not like if you're facing the 6th seed, it's it's a run of the mill game. But
sounds like you're talking yourself into confidence in Nick Foles.
I mean, it's because I've seen him play before, and he was the last quarterback to bring the Eagles to the playoffs. So you got to remember that. Although they weren't successful. Nonetheless, he was the last guy to bring them to the playoffs. So I can't not have confidence. It's not like he's some guy. He's, aside from his time with Jeff Fisher, where no quarterback's ever been successful. He's been successful under Andy Reid. He's been successful under Chip Kelly. He's been successful, relatively successful in a short time under Doug Peterson, which is basically the same system that he was running under in Kansas City as a backup, and then here in Philadelphia when he was the starter. So I have confidence in that. What I don't have confidence in is the fact that none of these teams are gimme teams. Now, hopefully you play a dome team like New Orleans, who has to go from a nice warm dome to 20 degrees.
Climate to a cold climate.
To, not just a warm climate, but a contained climate where it's going to be the same basically no matter what. To, who knows what it could be. It was 18 degrees today, so it could be even colder come 2 weeks from now, should they play them. So that's their advantage. I'm confident that they can still get to the Super Bowl, but not as confident as I was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah, the NFC seems fairly wide open. I'm not sure that the Eagles' defense looks solid, but without the run game, I'm not sure Nick Foles will be able to guide them. I'm not as confident as you that Nick Foles will be able to guide them to the Super Bowl. But we've got a lot more NFL to talk about, so let's go to another quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. So technically, by the letter of the law, per the NFL rules, the Packers should have had to release Aaron Rodgers. They're obviously not going to do that unless someone stepped in because he is the franchise. But you had an interesting topic idea that you wanted to bat around. Should Aaron Rodgers leave Green Bay or pursue other options? Now, my answer to this before I get yours is obviously yes, because he's had to carry that franchise on his back for the past 5-6 years. We see what they are without him. So he's certainly not been given the weapons that other teams could provide him with, or the defense. Right. Every time they've been in the playoffs, seems like they lose a shootout 35-28 because their defense can't stop anybody. Right. So I guess I'm assuming you agree. My question is, where would be a good landing spot for Aaron Rodgers if he does decide to leave Green Bay?
Well, see, the first part is I don't see him leaving Green Bay on his own, at least. One of those guys that wants to be one of the few great quarterbacks that actually stayed with the franchise that drafted them and do it their entire career. Because you think about it, aside from Tom Brady, and I think Dan Marino and a couple other guys, there's been a lot of great quarterbacks that weren't with that same team that drafted them so long ago. Brett Favre started with the Falcons, and then obviously everyone knows him from his days in Green Bay. The same thing with Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, for example, so on and so forth. So I think he's one of those guys that wants to be able to finish what he started, that if he goes out, he's going to go out as a Packer through and through. If for some reason he decides to leave, which I think he should, he should go to probably a warm climate, because that way, you don't have to worry about the elements nearly as much. So I think a place like Jacksonville with a great young defense, I think that's one thing you need, because Green Bay has no defense either. So you go to a place like Jacksonville, great defense, young talent offensively. Obviously, Leonard Fournette. And then you got the 2 wide receivers, Allen Hurns and Allen Robinson, to throw to, although Allen Robinson had injury issues nonetheless.
So a team that, like, the only thing they're missing is a quarterback, essentially.
Right. They're only, yeah. Like, if they got Aaron Rodgers, that's a Super Bowl team. There's no doubt in my mind. That's easily maybe not number 1, but they're top 5 in Super Bowl, I guess, predictions, whatever, Super Bowl, whatever you want to call it. That's one place. Houston, I think, would be an interesting place, even though Deshaun Watson's hurt. Obviously, that wouldn't be should Deshaun Watson come back healthy, that wouldn't be an option because he's going to be the starting guy. You could say, should New Orleans decide to move on from Drew Brees, you got young talent offensively, you got a great defense. There's a couple more places that you could look at.
Yeah.
Should the Arizona is another place, a nice warm climate, also their dome as well. And they still have Larry Fitzgerald, and I'm sure they would find pieces to put around him. And should Bruce Arians decide to stay, that's a great coach to play under. So
there's really not too many teams in the league that, like, Aaron Rodgers isn't an upgrade at the quarterback position.
Right.
So,
I mean, any team, no matter who you have as your quarterback right now, would take Aaron Rodgers. Aside from the Patriots, probably there's not. I don't think there's another team that would say we're okay with the guy we have now. We don't want Aaron Rodgers to step in. I mean, yeah. So,
but the point you raised about him being a Packer his whole career is an interesting one because, like you said, those other all-time greats all won multiple Super Bowls. Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Peyton Manning. Brett Favre, I guess he spent his whole career, essentially his whole notable career with the Packers, but he only won 1 championship, and that prevents him a little bit from being in the same conversation with those other guys.
And I think that's sort of the issue that Aaron Rodgers would face is that right now he's the greatest quarterback of our generation. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Everything he can do is absurd, but having only 1 Super Bowl definitely has a hindrance on everything. It's like Peyton Manning, he was so great, but for a long time, people were worried he's only got 1 Super Bowl. For everything that he's accomplished, 1 Super Bowl over however many years he was in the league, 16, obviously got that second one, barely was a factor, but nonetheless, he still got it. So I think if he wants to be remembered as also top 5 greatest quarterbacks or whatever, I think he needs to go to a place where he can get a shot to win at least 1 more, or if not more, because that's not the situation in Green Bay, especially with Minnesota being as good as they are, or you'd expect them to be as good as they are for the next few years. It'll make things a lot more difficult. Mitchell Trubisky's looked actually pretty decent. Detroit's always, you never know with them. There's some seasons where they look good, some seasons where they look good, but still relatively competitive. So it's not like it's an easy division anymore for him to just roll through, which is why I think you go to a place in Jacksonville where there's still young teams trying to figure everything out. Whereas if you put him, he's one of the only he would be the only established quarterback aside from Andrew Luck, who's had injury issues to be able to be the main guy.
And the AFC looks a lot weaker right now than the NFC, especially going forward, because the top 2 seeds, Jacksonville's the 3 seed right now with Blake Bortles at quarterback, and Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger are both getting way up there in age. So definitely there's better opportunities in the AFC. Now, I think he's going to stay in Green Bay, and honestly, I just don't see him winning another Super Bowl there because they have so many issues. Their offensive line is bad, their defense needs a complete retool, and he's got a couple weapons that he makes look even better than they are. But by the time they get the offensive line and defense adjusted to where they can be Super Bowl contenders, Jordy Nelson's going to be old and gone, and they'll need to retool the receivers then. And they've never had a running back really since he's been there. So Aaron Rodgers facing difficult questions in Green Bay. But from a former league MVP, I want to turn to the MVP conversation this year, I was looking at my MVP ballot and I got it pretty much down to 3 guys. I wanted to get your takeaway. I know, I believe your front runner is Todd Gurley right now. Is that correct?
Well, see, the thing about Todd Gurley, I wouldn't say he's my per se, but I feel like he's had such a good season, such a tremendous season even, couldn't give it that term, that he deserves to be in the conversation, especially because it would be different than being in, a quarterback. It's something different. It's something new. And 13 touchdowns, and I think he's got close to like 12, over 1,300 yards. Over 1,300 yards. That's nothing to snuff at. And he's really been – I don't think Jared Goff is having as great of a season, and I don't think the Rams are having as great of a season if Todd Gurley is not in the backfield. That to me is the definition of MVP. Where's that team without that player? They're not the same team, I can tell you that. They'd probably lose a couple more games, and they may not win the division. Maybe the Seahawks, and based on how this season goes, they may not even make the playoffs for all we know. So that's why he's my MVP. I still think, although he's hurt, obviously, I still think Carson Wentz, because although they've won the past 3 games, for those that have watched it, the offense against the Giants looked very good. So I'll give them that. But for those that watched Monday night's game, there's a difference. And you just see it. You just see it throughout the team. It's not the same. That defense was so much better with Carson Wentz in there, even though it wasn't even the same. They played two different sides of the ball. He just brings something else to that team. With injury, they haven't looked the same. They've looked lethargic. They've looked out of it. I don't know what it is, but that's sort of – you look at his stats. He was probably – had he stayed healthy, he was probably, a 40-touchdown season easily, without a doubt, especially against less than stellar defenses. I think he would have picked them apart, without a doubt. So I think he's still in it, but, I don't know how you couldn't at least think about putting Todd Gurley in the conversation.
Yeah, the 3 guys I had it down to, you pretty much hit the nail on the head, was Todd Gurley, Carson Wentz, and Tom Brady. Obviously, still looking at the numbers he's putting up over the age of 40, very impressive. But I'm not a huge fan of the whole MVP conversation because football is such like a team game. Honestly, I think the biggest piece for the Rams turning their season around, obviously Todd Gurley's had a phenomenal season, is just Sean McVay, honestly. The coaching change. Like their pieces are pretty much the same. They've had Todd. You saw what like Jeff Fisher's offense looked like with Todd Gurley, and now what McVay's offense looks like with Todd Gurley, and it's just a whole nother world. Jared Goff looks better at the quarterback position. That defense is playing better, even though they still had Aaron Donald and the playmakers on a Jeff Fisher coach team. But it's a coaching change, makes everything look so much better. Gurley, I have a hard time thinking he's going to win because usually the running backs the last couple of years that have been in the conversation, like Ezekiel Elliott and Adrian Peterson a couple of years ago, they have to be close to the rushing record, it seems like, for a single season just to get in the conversation. And Gurley's about 400, 500 yards short of that. But like you said, Brady, maybe it's because he looks phenomenal every year, but he looks like he's having just a normal season as far as his game.
But you also got to remember that Tom Brady has not played well the past 5 weeks. He's thrown an interception in the past, at least one interception per game the past like 4 or 5 weeks. So it's not like they've won. They've also got a lot of, that Bills game, that one call.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know about that. So that could be a changing situation. You look at the Steelers game as well with Jesse James at the very end. That could have easily been another loss. Yeah. So Tom Brady, to me, obviously putting up great numbers, especially doing the same thing, no real options besides Rob Gronkowski, but he didn't look great against the Dolphins without Rob Gronkowski, which you could say Rob Gronkowski's the MVP because without him,
Julian Edelman out, so that's another key target.
Yeah, that's 2 main targets.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think if I had a vote to cast, it would be for Carson Wentz because he made that team look far and away like the best team in the NFL when he was quarterbacking them along with that defense. And
Right.
now the defense is still good enough to kind of have them coast into the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're just nowhere near the same team
Right.
without him. And you saw him elevate them from a non-playoff team a year ago to
Right.
maybe the best team in the league.
Yeah.
But Gurley is certainly a big piece, big part of what the Rams are trying to do.
Right.
So let's get into that other man we were talking about, that other quarterback, Tom Brady. He posted a picture with his newest teammate on Instagram the other day, James Harrison, trying to welcome the Steelers' all-time sack leader into the Patriots locker room. What do we think about this? Because the Steelers are obviously the biggest adversary for the Patriots for the Super Bowl, people would think, at least in the AFC. And so that's been a rivalry of sorts the last couple of years because it's been the Steelers or the Patriots going to the Super Bowl. Now Harrison kind of looks like a Benedict Arnold. The Steelers did cut him and then release him. And then so he takes his talents over to Bill Belichick, probably, spills the beans about the defensive playbook. Is this a betrayal of the city of Pittsburgh by James Harrison, or is this just doing what he's got to do?
It's interesting. Because you can look at it in multiple ways. So he sort of forced his release. It wasn't like he wasn't playing and they were basically saying we're done with you. He wasn't playing a ton, but they sort of forced his release, and I think players saw him as not really being the veteran leader, helping TJ Watt, helping all the young defensive players sort of get the lay of the land. I think part of it has to do with them releasing him a number of years ago, and maybe this is payback. What other team other than the Patriots could get them back in the worst way possible? So I think that's one thing. And two, I think he thinks he can still play and still contribute to a championship team. So if he's not going to get time on one team that's obviously competing for a championship in Pittsburgh, why not go to another one that's competing for a championship that has a history of being able to take guys and get them to a whole nother level, no matter what their age is, no matter what, you look at LeGarrette Blount, he was basically an average player and last year had 18 touchdowns. So to have a veteran, especially on the Patriots defense that has been very bad this season, to have such a great pass rusher on your defensive line and to bring veteran leadership and experience, not that they don't have plenty of guys with experience, but a whole nother level coming from another competitive team to kind of give them an extra boost and give them an extra idea of what could be thrown at them. I don't see why it's a bad thing. Is it the right thing to do morally? Probably not. Is it sort of like the Kevin Durant thing? Kind of, maybe, but in a different sense in that, it's not like James Harrison never won a championship or couldn't defeat the Patriots or something, but he is going to, he's joining up with the super team, so to say, a team that has dominated the league for so many years. So I guess in that sense, but I don't blame the guy. If you think you can still play, which I think he can, and if you think you can help a team get over that hump and win another championship, I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah. It's an excellent little wrinkle here going into the playoffs because that Patriots-Steelers game was so close. A couple weeks ago, we saw the Jesse James catch that wasn't obviously the difference. Now, a Steeler that's so beloved, like James Harrison, the all-time sack leader, he's been with that team for so long, now takes his talents to New England, goes to the main contender against the Steelers going to the Super Bowl. And like I said, I think Bill Belichick's main thing, in addition to Harrison actually contributing on the field, is he can just tell him all about the Steelers' defensive playbook. He can tell them what they're doing here, what they like to do in this situation. That's the kind of stuff that Bill Belichick, that is within the rules, by the way,
right,
that Bill Belichick just loves to do. And for Steelers fans, I'm not a Steelers fan. I don't really like the Steelers, but if I put myself in that frame of mind, I could see it being comparable to the Kevin Durant betrayal, just because you feel like your team is so close to winning a championship. And then to have a beloved member of your team kind of switch to the other side and be a big part of the reason your team loses to your rival and doesn't go to the Super Bowl, that would crush me if I was a Steelers fan. So I feel for them on that level.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned Kevin Durant, so let's get into the next big topic of the day. The NBA was very active on Christmas Day. We got to see those very, very interesting Christmas Day jerseys. Initial thoughts before we get into the games. I know your Sixers had the early game and the under hit. I was all over that one against the Knicks. What do you think about the Christmas Day jerseys?
Well,
Like or hate them?
well, the thing is that they didn't do them this year, except for the Sixers. I don't think any other team had.
No, they were normal. But do you miss that?
Yeah, I know. I love the jerseys. I think it's a good contrast to the norm. I think it's a lot like the All-Star Game jerseys. People are always wondering what are they going to come out with this year? Design are they going to throw at us? Then the past couple of years have been really cool, and I've always liked them. But yeah, it just like felt weird. It just felt like a normal game, just because even though it was on Christmas, just because not everyone aside from the Sixers had that special jersey. And I think it's one of those things that sort of helps separate that day from a normal day, is to say we have these special jerseys. We can say we played on Christmas. This is our day for the 10 teams involved. It's their day to be in the spotlight. And now all eyes are on them. And one of the main attractions of it is seeing what they're going to wear. Now, they did, Nike at least, make up for it by starting those new My City jerseys, which I don't know if you saw yet, but they're really cool. I like them a lot. So at least they bounced back with that. But still, there's something missing, I feel like, not having those special jerseys.
Yeah. Like I said, sports, I think I said it on the last podcast, sports never ruin holidays. They always help make holidays. And one of the things I look forward to the most about the NBA on Christmas was the new jerseys. Because personally, I was a fan of them. Like you said, it helps separate from a normal game. And I always thought they looked pretty cool. I actually bought a Bulls one a couple years ago when they were still playing on Christmas. They for some reason they didn't get a Christmas slot this year. Wonder if that has anything to do with their record. But yeah, it definitely felt like something was missing. I know the players used to complain about them sometimes because they said it would affect their shooting stroke. But
those were only the sleeved one. I think they only did that like once or twice, didn't they? Was it last year?
I think they just figured it was too much.
Yeah, it was stupid.
Yeah, but even if that was the case, I would just say it's one game a year. Kind of suck it up and get through it, because I'm sure the NBA and Nike was profiting off it immensely, because you're always looking for a new kind of jersey to sell, and I was a big fan of those jerseys. So definitely felt like we were missing something this year.
Yeah.
But let's get into some of those Christmas games. The Houston Rockets were in action. They lost to OKC, who have started to pick it up as of late. They've won a couple. Houston, on the flip side, has lost a couple. Seems like they're starting to struggle a little bit more, while OKC's big three are figuring it out. Are the Rockets for real? Are they the biggest threat still to Golden State in the West?
I really didn't think they ever were. I really did think it was Oklahoma City. I thought it was one of those situations where even though they were struggling, they just had too much talent and too much. They were all, the three main guys are all veterans. I felt like eventually they would figure it out and come to some compromise on how the whole thing would work. And clearly, I believe Melo and Paul George have sort of realized that they have to take complementary roles. Obviously, still going to be a big part of it, but have to sit back to Russell Westbrook because it's his team at the end of the day. It's been his team for now 2 years, and he's the longest tenured Thunder out of the three of them. So I knew they would figure it out because they are the only ones to me that can match up in multiple positions truly with in a 7-game series with the
Golden
Warriors.
State. Yeah.
No, I think if it was a 3-game series, the Rockets would have a shot. But over
Yeah.
7 games or whatever, I'm sorry, who's going to cover Kevin Durant consistently for 7 games? Who's going to truly be able to, match up well for a 7-game series with all the talent they have? I don't. Besides for James Harden and Chris Paul, they have a lot of really nice complementary guys, but they don't have enough. They're not top heavy enough to be able to compete. Whereas you look at a team like Oklahoma City, you know that Russell Westbrook could cover either Klay Thompson or Steph Curry, and then you have hopefully Carmelo can learn how to play defense again and play better defense. He could at least have a shot against Kevin Durant or something. The same thing with Paul George because he's so long he can basically cover anyone 3 to 5. So that's and Steven Adams is a beast, as we know. So that's sort of why I felt like if they figured it out, they would truly be the ones that could compete with them. I didn't think Houston would be able to over a 7-game series. I really didn't.
That's interesting. I would agree. I think OKC, I need to see a little bit more. I was kind of hesitant when Paul George, right after they beat the Rockets on Christmas Day, said, it's just clicked. I think we figured it out. They do it. It's some crazy stat. I was trying to find it. Their record is outstanding when both Paul George and Carmelo Anthony score 20-plus points. So when their big three is clicking, not many people can beat them. However, they just haven't been able to click all that often this year. Houston, I will say, you bring up a good point about not being able to match up defensively with Golden State. However, Chris Paul has been injured. He did not play on Christmas Day, I believe, which certainly contributed to that loss. However, I think Houston can compete with Golden State. I'm certainly taking Golden State in a 7-game series, probably in 5 or 6 games. But you're right. I think ultimately a team like Oklahoma City, someone that has viable options to guard both Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, in my mind, that would be Russell Westbrook and Paul George. And like you said, Steven Adams might even be a better low post defender on a guy like Draymond. So I'm with you. OKC, biggest threat to Golden State in the West. However, I'm not writing off Houston. I think they can figure it out and maybe get another piece at the trade deadline to still keep things interesting.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I wanted to get before we sign off here, we've got our top 5 segment again. New Year's is coming up fast, and everybody is getting your New Year's resolution ready. It's New Year's resolution season, and I'm sure most of them will be done by the 3rd week of January. So I think we're gonna have a lot of the same ones here. So let's go back and forth with our top one. My first one is obviously the people going to the gym to lose weight.
Of course.
Yeah.
They go to the gym for 3 days and they're like, oh, I'm sore. And then they take off for about 2 or 3 days. And then they're like, screw it. Fuck it. We got next year. Basically.
Yeah. I'm not a gym hardo, but I do go to the gym like fairly regularly. And I know to skip, like I go very seldom during the first couple weeks of January because that's when it is just unbelievably packed.
Right.
Because everyone's trying to lose that holiday weight, and then after the second week, by the second week they're like, "Oh, screw this! It's not worth it. I'm happy with who I am." Well, whatever.
My other one was eating healthy.
Yeah, that goes hand in hand.
Everyone, I feel like, says, "Okay, this is the year that I'm going to start like watching my diet and watching my carbs and all that," and then they realize like it's winter and they don't feel like eating healthy, and by like the second week they're like eating pizza every weekend.
Oh yeah, my family's already trying to do that, and I was just laughing at them. Like my dad saying, "Yeah, coming home from work, I'm gonna start eating salads for dinner." I was like, "That'll last maybe a week," because like you said, it is winter. It's so cold and depressing out. You just want
Right,
to come home and eat something that tastes good to
right.
make you feel better about how shitty it is outside. So that will not last. Right now, it's easy because everyone's coming off of, at least for Christmas, a solid like week,
So
and
just
still is because you got leftovers of eating like lots of meats, lots of sugar, alcohol. It's so easy coming off of like a binge to say now I'm going to eat healthier.
mhm.
After about 2 weeks of eating salad and kale, you realize this sucks. I want to go back to the burgers.
Exactly, exactly.
All right, all right. I had another one. This is one that I probably should try to adopt, but I know it's not going to happen. See, I'm already 2 steps ahead of my New Year's resolution self. That's be on time. A lot of people think they're gonna be more punctual, like, oh, I gotta stop showing up late to my job or to class. It's not gonna happen. We all have our habits. You might be able to pull it off for like a week, but you're gonna oversleep. And I'm talking about me now. I'm gonna oversleep. I'm gonna occasionally try to do too much in a small amount of time and be running late. It's not gonna happen, guys.
No, mine's like that. My third one is procrastinating. I gotta stop. Like, because this happens every school year. Every school year,
Yeah.
like, in August, I say this. Like, I'm gonna get all my work done, in a timely manner. That way, I can hang out or whatever. And then it's like 2 days before something's due, and I've known about it for like a week and a half, and then I start doing it. So I gotta make sure that I stop procrastinating.
Yeah. So how do you think you're going to be able to do that though? That's the question. How long does that last before? How deep do we get in the semester before you start putting off the big assignments?
See, I don't think I'm gonna have as much of an issue because I only have to go on campus 2 days a week. So like I'll have a lot of time to
Mhm.
do work, and I don't have class till 11:15, and I only go on till 5:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'll have a good amount of time to get a lot of my work done, but that also means I'll have a lot of time to
Yeah.
procrastinate.
Yeah. See, I have the same kind of thing. I only have class Tuesday and Thursday, but I know that's just, I'll get stuff done with the extra time I have. It just won't be the school projects that I need to get done.
Right,
Instead I'll be, doing more fun stuff.
right.
So we'll see if we're able to stop procrastinating. Now, those are the big slash my resolutions, but I had to fill out the top five list.
Right.
So I went on the most common resolutions for 2018 and found this one:
Okay.
read more. How does that one strike you?
That's a good one. I mean, I feel like I read a decent I don't read books. I don't enjoy
Yeah,
reading. I don't have time.
uh,
I don't have the mental capacity. Not the mental capacity. That's not the right term. The
telling
I
on
just
yourself
can't
there.
sit and read a book. But like I'll read plenty of articles online. Like I'll read plenty of Bleacher. I read Bleacher Report articles all the time and ESPN articles all the time. So I don't have an issue in terms of reading. I have an issue in terms of reading, like sitting down and reading a book
Yeah.
every day. I can't do that. I don't do that.
The last, I don't think, I'm trying to ask around because if people tell you that they read books all the time, I'm convinced they're liars. I haven't
Right.
read a full book since my senior year of high school, and it was because it was a short one that I actually found interesting. I read The Great Gatsby,
Oh, I
and
love Great Gatsby.
I read The Great Gatsby and Catcher in the Rye. Other than that, I don't think I've read a book in the last like 6 years. They just, no one with all
Yeah,
the kinds
I agree.
with all the kinds of entertainment there is nowadays, it's just no one sits down and reads fiction like for fun. But I agree. I read blogs, I read articles about sports, like stuff that I'm interested in. But I don't sit down and read a lot of books. Occasionally I'll even read like a chapter or two of a textbook for class, but that's about it. So people that aren't readers that think they're just gonna be able to jump back into it, like just be cautious. You'll read like a couple chapters and fall out of love with that resolution real fast.
Yeah. One of mine, which is going to be even harder now that I'm legally allowed to do it is drinking.
Ah,
Drink so much.
when's your 21st birthday?
What?
When did you turn 21?
Turn 21. It'll be a month tomorrow.
Oh no.
So I've been 21 for roughly a month, and it's taken a toll.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's just one of those things where like it's just because you can.
Mhm.
It's like if like you lived in Colorado, you would definitely smoke a lot of weed because you can, because you know you can't really get caught. Nothing's gonna happen to you. You know? It's like I can legally just go out and get drunk without any precautions besides, public intoxication or looking like an asshole. But
Yeah,
but it's more of a health thing, you know. You don't you got to keep the liver clean. It adds weight, and then you're hungover and lethargic the next day, and it's just bad.
yeah,
So
yeah,
definitely,
definitely. I've been worried about that myself. I don't have to deal with that until next fall when I turn 21. But it's the temptations. All Kirkwood's right there.
right.
To just go out any weeknight. But then I can only imagine how much more I'm going to procrastinate once I'm legally allowed to. So you're gonna have to factor that into your not procrastinating.
See,
Uh,
I've actually learned to be better about getting my stuff done if I know I'm going to the bars. That's what I've learned.
okay, that's impressive.
There's a
But
truly good incentive.
yeah, yeah, I can see that. If you know you got like it's basically like we're dumb kids, you know.
Right.
You get this treat if you get your stuff done. All right, then I'm gonna do this really quick. I got you. The last resolution I had that's really stupid, I think, not that it's learning something new every day. Now that in and of itself, I don't think is stupid, but trying to like record it and make sure you learn something new every day is
Right.
what I think is stupid. You're gonna forget to do that once you start getting busier again throughout the weeks. Like I like to think I probably do learn something new every day, but I don't just consciously think about it because that's like a real try hard move to be like I'm gonna learn something new every day and better myself. It's like just go about your life, and if you're doing the right thing, you'll probably learn something
Right. I think my last one is writing more. I want to write more. I feel like I don't write
new.
enough.
Okay, right? Like sports writing, like for class or just in general.
Anything. I mean, yeah, mostly sports writing, but just anything. I feel like I write, but like I don't write enough. I know I'm a good writer. I just don't do it enough, and I want to do it more so I can be like awesome at it.
Yeah, I got you. That's a good one. Yeah, I think mine's probably just trying to be on time more. Like I said, I'll give it about a couple weeks before I'm
We'll
behind on
see.
everything.
We'll see who can last the longest with all these resolutions. That's
Definitely. I mean, as far as procrastinating, I'm already guilty. We were supposed to do this podcast a couple of days ago, and I
Tuesday.
put you off twice trying to figure this out.
It's all good.
Yeah, but we will definitely see who lasts longer. I think we'll probably do at least another podcast whilst we're on winter break, and then we'll be back at it in Franklin Hall come next semester.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I know you've got a women's basketball game to start live tweeting, so we're gonna have to sign off. For that guy in Philadelphia, Dan Black, I'm Joe Canner. This has been Inside the Lines, episode 2. Dose. We will see you guys soon for episode 3. Thanks for listening.
Adios.